Welcome to the Adelaide Property Pod, a series of conversations with industry experts shaping South Australia's real estate market. Today, I'm joined by Brett Pilgrim, the Managing Director of Pilgrim Real Estate, and we're getting into what's happening in the market, what makes a property sell, and where people get it wrong. Brett, thanks so much for joining me, mate. Welcome to the show.
No worries. Thank you for having me.
I'd love to hear a little bit about your story and how you got your start in real estate. Could you just share a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been around real estate for a long time, was working more in finance, was in Sydney in the finance for a large franchise group, interacting with a lot of agents, getting finance in their business, those sort of things. A lot of travel, and decided to come back to Adelaide to be closer to family and didn't know what I was going to do. And that franchise group convinced me that I should open an office. Hadn't sold property before, but went straight in 2011 and haven't looked back.
And that group was a franchise group and you moved to a different franchise, I think, or was it the same franchise group the whole way through?
No, I was with them for a long time. Personal circumstances saw me decide to look at other options. We also wanted to really, we felt luxury properties might fit the other franchise group a bit more. So there was a few decisions around that.
Yep. And now you've moved away to become independent and the name is Pilgrim. Love the branding. And I think your wife was the architect behind the design. So good points there. And how are things going now that you've become independent, and have you sort of felt a shift since moving away from a franchise to independent?
Yeah. No, it's been amazing. We probably, that first move to shifting across the franchise, we did consider it, but probably wasn't ready. I didn't know name, things like that. You know, Pilgrim was floated. I didn't want to do that. Then, my wife and her and a large marketing agency got together and came back with Pilgrim. And the brief was sort of make it more about the property and less about the agent. And it's been fantastic. We've really cemented our spot in that high-end mark, but still doing really, really good for the other properties as well.
Yep. And what's probably one thing that you like to do as a point of difference to your competitors out in the marketplace?
Yeah, it's how we market a property. I think we're very clever at that, and we have a real team approach. It's our whole office trying to sell a property. It's not just that individual agent.
Okay. Tell me a little bit more about that, how all agents will get involved in a sale campaign, even if they're not the listing agent? Absolutely.
So the second a property is listed by anyone in our office, it shoots out to everyone. Then they might have buyers, they'll promote it to their networks. So it's a team approach, because what goes around comes around. So it helps them sell property if we help each other. Whereas traditionally agencies are, they're businesses within a business, and our guys are still like that. We like to promote them individually, but by helping everyone, you come to one of our auctions, it's the whole team. It's most of the team. It's not just one, the agent and the auctioneer.
Yeah, that's awesome. Changing gears a little bit, and let's talk a little bit about the market. And you see it from a sales agent perspective, managing director perspective, but also an auctioneer. How are you seeing things on the ground right now?
Yeah, it's interesting times. It's a bit of a shift. We've had it so good for quite a while now. And two things I'm really sort of seeing is caution. Buyers sitting on their hands a bit more, talking themselves out of property, going back to it a lot. That's slight auctions are still going well, but they're hard to get started. So it's just that real cautious approach. Still plenty of buyers, still plenty of good results, but that caution's definitely there. And the other thing we're seeing a lot of overpricing. I don't know that that's anyone's fault. We've just had such a huge increase. And so I think vendors' expectations, I've been accustomed to that growth, so they're still thinking that growth's happened. Not that prices have gone backwards, but because they've slowed. That trajectory's not still there, but the vendors still have that expectation.
Of course.
Or agents out there are still thinking that as well. So,
yep.
So that's pushing days on market out. And we're seeing a lot of withdrawals at the moment too. Thankfully not in our business, but we are seeing it a lot.
Yeah. You touched on a touch of caution creeping into the market. Is there any one specific thing that's driving that, or are there a couple of little factors at play that most of us are aware of?
Yeah, look, I think, it's funny when rates go up, everyone goes, what effects that have on. You never see an immediate effect, but it's like the perfect storm. There's so much going on at the moment. You've got that, you've got what's happening in the world. So politics, you've just got so much uncertainty. So everyone's questioning their decisions. And it feels a little bit like the start of COVID. There was a short period of uncertainty there. So yeah, it feels not the same, but a little bit like that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm starting to get a little bit of a sense of that as well. Just even on the rent side, like I feel with our management, the inquiries just come off a little bit, and it's an interesting little watch for a period of time. And I think everybody's just sort of sitting on the sidelines a little bit and seeing how things play out. So time will tell. You mentioned you help clients get properties ready, and marketing is key. What are some of the sort of key pointers Pilgrim offer or provide in assistance with their vendors to get a property ready for marketing and to go on the market?
Yeah, I mean, in an ideal world, you don't rush to market. Certainly, there's always scenarios where that happens. I've got one that just happened. I only met them yesterday, and they want to try and get to market as soon as possible. But in an ideal world, you have a right lead in. You meet with them. You meet with cleaners, trade, stylists, and presenting their home the absolute best you can, and tease it to the market first. So there's that real build up. So when it is open for the first time, it's busy. The buyers, it helps them overcome that cautiousness. If there's a lot of people at that open, so they go, well, this must be a good property. I will show my hand.
Staging a property, how important do you think that is in preparing a property to come to market? And does that really paint a picture or tell a story for buyers walking through the door?
Yeah, I think it's more important than ever. Look, some people have beautiful furniture, beautiful homes, or some people just won't do it. But I'm a big believer in it, because it's not for when the people come there. It's people search property differently now. Traditionally, you'd have one ad, one photo in the paper, and people would go and look at everything. But now they sit online, and then you have to land in the right price range, in the right location, and then they'll weigh up which properties they're going to go and look at. So if you put yourself in that buyer's shoes, they're looking at what properties look the best. So if you've got 3 properties that look like a display home and one with aged furniture and all of that, that's what really stands out in the photos. And all right, yes, they're buying the house, but you want to stand out, so you want to be the properties that they go to on the weekend.
Yep. Yeah, it's very interesting how much, subtle changes just in furniture alone can have an impact on the overall result for clients. So it's very interesting. I want to talk about off market. It's an interesting space, and I get inquired, or I get people talk to me about it a lot and asking me about off market opportunities. I get inundated with properties coming through as off market. Where do you what's your view on the off-market space, and how do you play that? And is it a vendor-driven decision for your stock to be off-market, or do you prefer on or off-market, or is it property-based?
An agent's always going to prefer on-market because it's their profile, isn't it? But I think off-market, and there's also this perception that if you sell off-market, you haven't exposed it to everyone. So how can you know if you've got the right price? And to that, it is true, but there's the other side of it. And I look at what's an exceptional result. It's if everyone's fought over the property and it's done really well. But often where we see exceptional results is the off-market sale as well. And people go, well, how does that work? It's when you present a property, and we're known for selling a lot of off-markets. In fact, I met with realestate.com the other day, and they pointed that out to me. I don't think they were that happy about it, but
they would be filthy.
But we show all our properties before they go to market to our data. And I think agents are, with technology, they're better at keeping in touch with buyers. I think we've seen a real shift to buyers agents in Adelaide finally, which was good interstate, but slow here. So you've got those contacts. And when you show a property before it goes to market, you can, the vendor, a lot of vendors go, well, this will be good. I don't have to do the staging. I don't have to spend all the marketing. But it does two things. I say it's worth doing anyway because it educates us what the property's worth. It educates the vendor what the property's worth. We have an idea, but at the end of the day, a property's worth what someone is willing to pay.
Correct.
So we need that feedback. And so that's the main reason I like it. But as a result, you might have someone come through that go, I love this property. Oh, I don't want to compete with everyone else because I think everyone else will love it. So the power goes to the vendor and they can say, you're going to have to put your best foot forward. For us not to go to market, it's going to have to be attractive. So often those properties that are sold prior, when someone's just going, no, I don't want to compete. I'm sick of missing out. I'm just going to go bang and put my best offer forward. So it's an exceptional result. So that's where off-market can work really well.
Yeah, and it's interesting to hear it from your perspective because when people come to me with off-market or can you find me something off-market, for some reason they've got this distinct connection that it's going to be a deal.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's quite the opposite, guys. Yeah, I can bring you off-market and we've got plenty. I get texts and emails and phone calls with, endless listings all day, every day of off-market. But they think they're getting themselves a bargain where really we're just unlocking the opportunity to get prior access before the rest of the market gets exposure. So yeah, it's interesting and it is becoming more of a thing. I've noticed and the right agents and the good agents use it strategically to ensure a really good result and save their clients and vendors potentially thousands of dollars on marketing, staging, and going through a marketing and sales campaign. We were talking about pricing off air. How do you disclose price if it's a private sale typically on listings, or how do you market a property when it's going on up for sale? Do you have a price attached to it, or you'll say contact agent?
I think the best way to sell is a price, a single price, because the buyers are frustrated if it's not that. Saying that, we do a lot of auctions without a price, but that is really a bit like that off market. It is a bit of research, and ultimately it might not end up going to auction. So the last 5 auctions I've done, I've sold all prior. So we've had that feedback. We know where it sits, and we've had good, strong offers prior. But while there's caution, I think we'll lean more to single price because that's what the buyers want. They want to see a price. They want to understand what it's worth. They don't want to get frustrated. But yeah, it's sometimes we might have a unique property, or we might have expectations that aren't aligned. So but the market feedback will give it to us, and we can sit with our vendors and go, look, I know where the price is. This is where it's at. Let's see what the feedback is. But yeah, attaching a price is what the buyers want. But we might need to do some research first.
Yeah, and overpricing a property or underpricing a property, whether rightly or wrongly. I'm not just talking about you or Pilgrim in general. Just the general market observation. Yeah. I see a lot of properties, down south, for example, that are lower, and then I see some properties maybe at the more premium end that feel like they've got a heavy price tag attached to it. How do you see that, and what does that do to consumer confidence going into the market?
Yeah, it's interesting. Look, I think you're better off to under-promise and over-deliver. It is. I don't feel you can underprice a property, but you can certainly overprice. We're seeing a lot of overpricing at the moment, getting it wrong, and that can do real damage. It'll push the days on market out, and people have the data now, so they can see that it's been sitting on the market. So they go, well, what's wrong with the property? Nothing wrong with the property. It was just started overpriced, and so you've got a lot of agents picking up property that was for sale with other agents previously. and it can be tarnished by doing that. So it's very, very dangerous to overprice a property. Whereas underpricing a property, it will. A lot of agents will do it on purpose, but if that price is on the property, then the vendor should be willing to sell it that. So if it ultimately gets way more, well, it was worth way more. But if it didn't, well, then it would still be sold at that. So that's where I think you can't undersell a property. It just can create really good competition. It's like when people see, a deceased estate, they think it's going to be an absolute bargain, but ultimately those often go for way more because people thought it was going to be cheap.
Yep.
So yeah, it's definitely maybe those properties that you're seeing that all appear that they were under. The intention wasn't to be under. It's just because people saw value, they'll fight over it. And the market is always overcorrection. So if things are perceived as value, they'll overpay. If things are perceived as overvalue, they'll run away. So, and you're never going to nail the price exactly right.
Yeah, and I think to your point, consumers are a lot more aware and armed with data around recent sale transactions and where value is. And like you said, at the end of the day, property's worth what anybody's prepared to pay for it. So if they see value well north of the guide, then that's what it's worth. So yeah, it's an interesting little space. And the first 2 weeks of a property going to market, is that super important to get right and get that feedback on price?
Yeah, the first 2 weeks are crucial, but they're not. It's not everything. There's so many stigmas or so many sayings in the real estate industry. Your best first offer is your best offer, and at the end of the day, you want to hit the market right. You don't want to sort of slowly ramp your campaign. You want to make sure you've exposed it as far and wide as you can. And I think the real issue in real estate at the moment, and Adelaide's a prime example of it because you've got a lot of real small, unheard of suburbs. And so the way people search is price range and location. So if you put your property in a certain price range at a certain location, you're just hoping it's being found, and that could be missed. So, so exposing it with as many other methods of marketing as you can, rather than just those things, is really, really important, particularly in the first 2 weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. You touched on buyers are a little bit cautious at the moment, and there's a whole heap of reasons why, which we've already touched on. But buyers that are missing out on properties, is there any one thing that they're getting wrong throughout the process, or is there something that resonates with you and stands out that you can share with us?
Yeah, so much buyer regret. I wish I bought that one, just sold in one suburb, sort of 5 properties, and there's a lot of people coming to one we've got off market this Saturday and they're saying, I wish I bought this one, I wish I bought this one. And it is, I think buyers need to be more flexible. They look for a home when they should be looking for a house. And what I mean by that is every property, even if it's brand new, you're going to want to make changes. My last property was brand new and we changed the kitchen. It is, you can't look for that home. You've got to look for a house that you're going to make your changes to. So that might not be your dream location if it's about value. It might not be the dream floor plan, but you can change that over time and move into it first and then work it out. But it is interesting. It's the perfect home. It's not out there. So have some flexibility. I think they learn that. It's that first look. Oh, this is the first house we looked at. So you need some flexibility, and you learn that when you've missed out time and time again. Oh,
absolutely. We built a house recently and, custom design. We spent a lot of time getting the floor plan right. And we still go through it today going, geez, we probably should have done this or we could have done that.
Yeah.
And I say to clients all the time, even with an endless budget, endless lands, endless resources, you're still going to get something within the scope that you're going to change in 1, 2, 5 years down the line. So it's insightful to hear that. How do you know when a buyer's serious when they're approaching you in the market? What distinguishes that buyer from the pack going, this person is ready to go?
Yeah, I've always had, I'm a bit strange with my team about this. I've always had a bit of a KPI sheet for buyers. They'll do one of 6 things. And if they do two of those, we know they're serious. So it might be asking about settlement. It might be, asking for the Form 1 and contract. Is there a building inspection available, or can we get one? And how do we make an offer? So it's these sort of things, and we know if they make two of those, that they're very serious. Over time, I'm a big data person. That will always come through and go, yeah. And particularly with auctions, and when I call auctions not just for Pilgrim, for others as well, and I ask, how many bidders, do you think, I think I'll have this, and often they don't, because it's just going on a gut feel. But in our office, they'll have the KPI sheet, and I've definitely got 3, or I've definitely got 5 or 10, and so it's always pretty accurate.
Yeah, it's really interesting to hear that you're actually looking at the data that will give you the sort of the understanding of where the interest is going to come in at. I hadn't heard that before, so thank you for sharing. Talk to me about mistakes on both sides, vendors and buyers. Where's one thing vendors get it wrong during a sale campaign?
The main thing I see is overpricing, which we've already covered. I think if a vendor's selling the house, the first thing they should do is go and have a look at, they'll hang on to that unbelievable property sale, and they'll find a reason that theirs is better, which is normal. I would do that too. But what you've really got to try and do is look at it as a buyer, because if you can put your buyer's hat on, and if you can be realistic, that'll set your campaign up. I always say the best results we get for clients are the realistic vendors. So I think unrealistic is always going to be a thing. It's that hope, it's that dream, but you nearly put a line through that hope and that dream if you overprice. But their uncle that sold 2 houses knows better as well.
Of course. So, how do you manage that expectation? Because you would come across this daily.
Yeah.
How do you navigate that conversation with the vendor?
Yeah. So up front, it is data. I'm willing to lose a listing. Particularly, I nearly lost this through COVID, because often I know what I thought was overpriced, it would get achieved anyway. But no, I'm willing to lose a listing. And in 2026, I've already sold quite a few properties that I lost, but then withdrew and come back to me. The data, doing all that, and I only tell them, look, this is what I think's worst case. And I'll talk a lot about worst case rather than best case. If that dream price is there, we'll get it. We'll absolutely get it, but we've got to be ready for that. But some vendors just aren't ready to hear that. But the other side of it is when we have listed, just honest and quick communication is key. So, I don't think it's the agents doing the wrong thing when they don't give that honest and quick communication. They're like, oh no, I thought it was here, and the feedback's here. I was wrong. You're allowed to be wrong. I mean, if we were 400,000 wrong, it sounds dire, but just give that feedback. Here's what it is. If we were 400,000 wrong the other way, we're unbelievable agents. Of course. So sometimes we're wrong. So just give it to them quickly, give it to them factual, and let them deal with it. And in fact, I've just sold one, and yes, it's got around where I said, but they were thinking it was a lot more in 28 Gardens, and within 3 weeks, that they came down to the where the feedback was, where I said it was originally, and they're very, very happy. They're like, thank you for just being honest and open. And so it's that quick communication given to, I always hope it's a lot more. I always hope it, but it's worth what someone will pay.
Absolutely. Spot on. And what about on the buyer side? What's probably one big mistake you're seeing on the buyer side at the moment?
So obviously that I said about that, looking for a home instead of a house. But I think the other thing is, they play their cards too close to their chest. So it's people don't trust agents, so they become the untrustworthy ones. They won't tell you, but I can tell you if a buyer comes to me and is honest, and is willing to show their interest. There's this stigma that you can't show that you're interested. But that buyer that doesn't show that they're interested are the buyers that come back and go, oh, I would have bought that. Well, you didn't tell me. You didn't say. You didn't show any interest. Yes, we messaged everyone, but you didn't come back to me. And so it's show you're interested. You're not committing to buying by saying, I really like this home and I'm interested in it. That's not a commitment until you've signed a contract, and you
Correct.
still then get calling off most of the time. So, it is show your interest, and you'll be surprised what you might get out of that agent by showing your interest. So I think the biggest mistake we see is they play their cards close to the chest, and they won't show their interest.
Yeah, really good insight, and hopefully everybody gets something out of that. Let's talk about the next 12 months and what the future holds for property here in Adelaide. If you were to give a prediction, how do you see things playing out for the rest of this calendar year and into the next 12 months?
Yeah. I think in Adelaide, we're lucky. We've sort of got some built-in resilience. What I mean by that is Adelaide market's a bit like, compared to the eastern states, we're the tortoise and they're the hare. So they've always been volatile, up and down, whereas we were always frustratingly slow. But now in the last 5 years, we've had this 100% growth, unbelievable, all of that. So we have that resilience built in where we were way under. So we've corrected now. So we're a little bit safer here. But saying that, my definition of a market is always overcorrection. So I do say that with an air of caution. There's no way it can always just continue dramatically up. Over time, yes, it will always go up, but there will be some peaks and troughs. So I just think Adelaide's still a fantastic place to invest. But, there is some overpriced properties out there at the moment. So just proceed with caution.
Thanks so much for your insight, Brett, and I really appreciate you joining me today.
No worries. Thank you. Cheers.
Thanks for listening to the Adelaide Property Pod. If you've enjoyed this conversation, make sure you're following the show so you don't miss the next one. I'll see you next time.